Now we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It is Friday. It is just gone 11. And here's Claire conveniently back again. If she comes on, let's just see. Spinning wheel, no sign of Claire. Claire, we can't see you, but anyway, try to log on again. Joining me this morning is a man who you are all familiar with. Let me just get rid of that for a moment. He has one of the impressive rugby CVs you'll ever see. And I'll just briefly go through it, and maybe Charlie, we'll talk a bit about that. Hold on. Greg, how the hell are you doing, buddy? Better late than never.
How are you?
Greg, I'm going to start my intro again. Greg, there's Charlie. Charlie, meet Greg.
Hey, Charlie, Greg. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
All right, we'll get there eventually. Okay, gentlemen, good to have you both with us. It is, I'll start again. It is Friday morning. It's gone 11 o'clock. We're slightly late. We had a few technical issues with one of our colleagues, Claire, trying to log on. But look, here we are, and we shall go ahead. I was about to introduce Charlie, but before I do, we are joined here by Greg. Hold on, Claire. If you don't come on this time, you're barred. There she is, Claire. Jesus, finally. Okay, I'm not going to restart that intro. I'll just keep going. Joining me is also a friend to the show. He's been on with us before. Greg McWilliams, who is the former senior coach for the Ireland women's team. People who are familiar with the show will know who Greg is. Also joining me is our colleague Claire Devaney, who we eventually got there. And also our guest, I'm delighted to have him on. I remember him well on the pitch, playing against us at test level, and also playing against the provinces for Sale Sharks and Saracens. It is Charlie Hodgson. Charlie, how the hell are you doing, buddy? Are you well?
I am very well. Thank you very much for having me this morning. It's good to be here.
Not at all. It's good to finally get going. And come here, Charlie. My God, your rugby career. I'm just looking at it. 228 appearances for Sale Sharks, 132 appearances for Saracens. You made 38 appearances for your home country, England. 18 of them were consecutive starts between 04 and 06. You played in the centre a couple of times, but your main position that you played in and where you were probably most successful in was in the 10 shirt. You also made a trip down to New Zealand for the 2005 Lions tour. Wow, Charlie Hodgson, that is some career. What do you make?
It's like I consider myself unbelievably fortunate, grateful to have all those memories that come with that 16 years. I think my international career was a bit of a roller coaster, if I'm honest. Like there was some really good bits and there's some really, really shit bits. And the club side was also a bit like that, but actually first probably 6 or 7 years at Sale was awesome. A couple of years where it wasn't so good, and then the last 5 years at Sarries was also some of the best rugby in my career. So just nice when it's sort of played back to you like that. It's not often I kind of sit back and think about it, but it's nice when it gets played to you and you kind of hear what's happened and the things that we've done and things that we've achieved. It's pretty cool.
Would you like to tell people who might not know, I'm certainly aware, I'm sure Greg is aware, of your, I would say quite an impressive, I'm playing it down now, quite an impressive international debut against Romania. Tell people who, no, I know, but tell people who might not be aware of your debut.
Well, it was a slightly strange game, actually, because it was sandwiched in between. It was the Autumn Internationals, and it was sandwiched in between Australia and South Africa. So I sat on the bench for those two games, and Johnny Wilkinson was obviously starting. I had an opportunity to play against Romania in that middle week. We ended up winning 134-0. I had an individual points tally of 44 points.
You did?
It was one off the world record, and actually, I didn't actually notice at the time, but we scored a try in the last few seconds of the game out wide in the corner. I hit the post with a conversion, and so if it had gone over, it would take me 46. It would have been a world record, but it is what it is. It's fine. Not that I. But it is.
But Charlie, it is a Premiership record still, isn't it?
But in terms of Premiership, that's an international one. Yeah, that's
the international one. Yes,
international one. Yeah, but the Premiership one is still stands. That I'm the highest point scorer in the Premiership. Yeah.
And what is your points tally for the Premiership, Charlie?
I don't know. It's something. It's something like 2000, something like 2,600, something like that. 2,700, something like that.
Claire, were you going to come in there? Say something.
I said it's over 2,500 anyway. Because remember, I was telling you, we were discussing this the other day. Peter didn't believe me when I told him. He actually didn't.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think the closest ones have also retired. George Ford, I think he's a current player. I think he's still probably about 400, 500 points off. So there's a bit of making up to do. And obviously with the likes of Finn Smith, Marcus Smith, who are young and have played plenty of games already, you just never know whether that record will stand. And I'm sure, who cares really? But like, it's nice to have at the moment.
Of course, absolutely. Greg, have you anything you want to ask Charlie at this stage, or will we go on to what we're supposed to be talking about on the list?
No, we'll go on. Look, I'm a fan of yours, Charlie. I've moved in similar circles. I coached with Gary Gold for 3 years. You would have come across a little bit when he was the director of rugby in Bath. But I'm really looking forward just to talking about rugby and trying to pick your brain a little bit. So, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Charlie, one thing you mentioned your ups and downs. I remember reading this. I was aware of it anyway, but I just wanted to refresh my memory. It was you were dogged with injuries, wasn't it? Your cruciate that you had.
Yeah, I had a few injuries. Yeah, I mean, I did my left ACL the Six Nations of 2003. And so that was the Six Nations that I was picked at centre as well, which is a bit of a weird one. So I played 2 games at centre, then came off the bench for the 3rd game, did my ACL, and then missed the rest of the year and missed out on selection for that 2003 World Cup. And then I did it my other knee, my right knee, in 2006, also playing for England. So yeah, just it is what it is.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Charlie. Let me ask you, seeing as you have been there in your career, what did you make of this year's Lions tour? In your eyes, was it a success? Was it okay? Well, I don't think anyone would say it was a classic. But what did you make of it, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, did they win? Yes. So that's kind of like the big tick. Winning the series away, brilliant. It's funny, actually, when you reflect on the games, they obviously really, really successful in the first game. Let's forget what went before the test matches, but first test was very relatively straightforward. But then actually, when you look at the second and third test, actually, I think the Lions were quite lucky, certainly the second test, to come back from that 18 points down and obviously score in the last few minutes. So I think on the balance, I don't think it was as one-sided as people thought it was. And maybe that came down to a fact that the lads were tired and they would come to the end of a long tour and they played that first test and it almost did come across as being too easy. So they were slightly more relaxed in the second test. I don't know. I suppose the mere fact that they came back from 18 points down and still won, I think is pretty incredible. But on the balance, I think they certainly deserve to win, but I don't think Australia was as bad as people thought as well.
Yeah, well, true. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Greg, I think I've asked you, but let's just remind ourselves what you thought of the Lions tour just gone. You haven't coached at the top level of the game.
Yeah, similar to Charlie, look, I think it was great to go down to Australia and get the win. It's really important for the brand as well. The one thing, and again, I think Andy Farrell is a superb coach. His management team are great. I would have liked to have seen a ring of changes for the last test because I think there was a lot of players who would have been very hungry to prove themselves. I think they were all waiting to get an opportunity. And I think going with the same group again for the last test, after they'd won 2-0 and after they'd celebrated, I just think the energy needed to change. And I thought you would have brought a new dynamic by making a couple of changes. But it just shows you now going into the championship and seeing how Australia started. It's obvious that they're further down the line. Look, we know that Joe Schmidt is leaving and Les Kiss is coming in. But there's a lot that Joe Schmidt has done with the Australian side that people weren't expecting, making them competitive. They seem to have good cohesion now. We can see as well how important the likes of Valentini and Skelton are. Just in rugby, it's quite simple about you can get go forward ball and you can control the territory. The game is a lot easier. So Australia were good value, but the one thing I would say is I would love to have seen some changes for that last test.
All right.
I definitely agree with that. I think, like you say, I said as well, like it felt like they were a little bit cooked as well, and of course their mindset going into that third test, knowing that they'd already won the series, is just you kind of think it could have done with some fresh faces. The likes of Pollock, the likes of Bernal, maybe just could have really added some energy to that last game.
And our own one, I was going to say, sorry, Charlie, I don't mean to interrupt you. Our own player, Josh van der Fleer, I thought he would have got a run out. Particular.
You could have gone a whole back row of Van der Fleer, Earl, and Pollock. That alone would have brought a different dynamic. But look, reflecting, as you know, it's a great thing sitting here and reflecting. When you're in the moment and you're closer to the players throughout the week and you're seeing how they're training and how the dynamic is, there's more to it than that. But yeah, that alone, and Tupulapu as well, as somebody that I would like to have seen playing that last test. I thought he deserved it. I thought Bundy gave everything. I thought he looked tired in that last test. You saw that with his lateral movement in particular. I just thought he looked tired. But yeah, reflection is always a great thing. But they still won the series, but to go 3-0 would have been special.
It would have, yes. And of course, Owen Farrell being the only player to win a series twice. Fair play to him.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah. Okay, Claire, I know because we've spoken about this before, but briefly give us your thoughts on that Lions tour. Would you agree with what Charlie and Greg have said?
It was a bit of a damn squib at the end of it all, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a bit of a damn squib. Let's be honest, when we were going down, we didn't think Australia would put up much of a fight. I think an awful lot of people had written Australia off by that time. But they at first we were lucky. We were lucky, as Charlie said, we were lucky to come from whatever 18 points down to win the test. So yeah.
I think maybe from a fan's perspective, it might have been quite nice for us to lose that second test, because then that obviously going into the final one would have been a cracker, wouldn't it? But obviously it wasn't helped by the fact that we had those thunderstorms and had to come in for a little bit and stuff. So it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, true. Sorry, Claire, will you finish your point there?
Yes, I'm finished my point.
Charlie, talking about the lines now. Again, we've spoken about this before here on the show, but you were there, and I want to get your take on this. And this is not just me saying this or my opinion, but it has been widely in the print media and online media. And because it's your position, kind of your position, it is your position, yeah. A player that didn't do himself any favours, it would appear, was Marcus Smith, Charlie. But we're never here to bash teams or players, but it just seemed he didn't play to his full potential, Charlie. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, it's perhaps a little bit unfair because he wasn't playing in position. So the majority of time that he was playing was at 15. So that in itself becomes a challenge for Marcus. I think he was probably unlucky not to really get an opportunity to play at 10. And I think when you've got Finn, Finn Russell obviously was realistically always going to start the test matches. Finn Smith obviously deserved an opportunity and got there, but then Marcus also deserved an opportunity at 10. But so that's a lot of players to play at 10 in such a short space of time. So Marcus Smith clearly went there as a utility. They probably played him too much at 15. I don't think it was particularly fair on him, but he didn't really get a good crack at that opportunity, to be honest. So I think it's quite harsh to say he didn't really reach his potential. I think it's just he did what he could in a position that he doesn't actually know very well.
But why do coaches, Greg, maybe you can answer this as well after Charlie, but Charlie, why do coaches do that? You know, we've seen it again, players being played out of position, and sometimes it damages their careers. So why the hell do coaches do or insist on doing it, Charlie?
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer. I haven't been in that position, obviously, as a coach. I think Marcus's situation is quite an intriguing one because as a fly half, he's kind of, he tries to do things that Finn Russell does, but he doesn't really do the pragmatic things that perhaps Finn Smith does. And so I think he's found himself a little bit lost in terms of his game management, in terms of how he really, like Finn Russell has really honed in on that game management side. And he's talked about that during his time at Bath, like the work that he does with Ben Spencer. So he's gone from being a bit of a maverick to actually being a maverick and somebody who can control a test match. Marcus Smith, I think, is still a bit of a maverick, but doesn't necessarily have that balance to his play where he can actually control the game properly, which is probably where Finn Smith gets the nod ahead of him. So I think he's found himself in this really difficult situation now where I suppose his strength is not necessarily needed all the time as a fly half, and I think he needs to think about how he balances his games and the way he plays it. I don't know. I haven't answered your question, have I? But it's quite a difficult one, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, no. I agree. Go on, Greg. You've been there.
I'm just thinking back to the World Cup in 2019, going to Japan. You select a panel of 31 players at the time. It's now 32, and there are going to be players that aren't going to be selected. So it's what they can contribute not only to training and the dynamism of training, but also how they are around the group. So with Marcus Smith, he is such a good rugby player. But for international 10, I think the debate is, to Charlie's point, has he got the game management at times not to overplay and to do the pragmatic things that get your team territory and the ability to build pressure? And it's something that he's going to get better at because he's so young. But for me, you always want to play the best players in their best positions. I'd be taking Marcus Smith every day of the week as an extra 15. It's one of those things, Charlie, I'm sure you'll appreciate this, that coaches beforehand might have got you to play 15 the odd time, so you can kind of see from the back what it's like when you go back into the 10 position. You're able to see the game slightly differently, and it can improve your performances. So I think the experience of being down in the Lions would have helped Marcus massively. And I think being around the likes of Finn, both Finns, like Finn Smith for me is such a good rugby player because I love his game management. I love his understanding of the game line and when he plays flat and when he plays deep. I think it's a really tough skill that he does well. I think very often I think Marcus gets that wrong. Now I'm somebody from the outside looking in, so I'm not here to bash Marcus Smith, but the ability to understand the game line, to play people around you, or when to go to a kicking game is a really hard skill to get at the highest level. And I think he still is trying to figure that out. So I would 100% have taken him. I would 100% have played him at 15. And look, finally on this, let's imagine that the Lions are playing Australia, but there was no set piece and it was like a game of touch or a game of tackle. Marcus Smith would be brilliant in that environment because he's such a good footballer. And he attracts defenders into his space. So, but it's hard for him because defensively, I thought he got found out a little bit because of being 15. He didn't quite understand how to close gates at the end, and I thought he got exposed because it's just a position he's not used to being in. But he'll be better because of it.
But I tell you, Greg, I and Charlie, I completely agree with you. I think it was really unfair on Marcus to play him in that position because I hate seeing that. And obviously,
he played 15 before.
I know. One second. He's obviously a very talented player. See, Claire has this habit of just jumping in unannounced.
I'm a woman. I always do.
You always do, yes. But Charlie, you're after distracting me now. I've lost my point. I was just going to say it was unfair on Marcus, I think, because he is such an obviously talented player on the park. And I just when I saw him being picked at 15, it was, Jesus, here we go again. Another career damaging moment.
Maybe, sorry to interrupt, maybe you also have to understand or remember that Kinghorn was injured. Keenan obviously had his time being ill. So like there's obviously other dynamics going on in terms of selection that actually...
Yeah, all right. Go on, Claire. You're dying to get in there. And now go on. Say
all I was saying is he played 15 before. I know you're saying he played out of position, but he did play 15 a couple of times before.
No, I know that.
Is it bad being a utility back?
Maybe, sure.
Is it being bad? Is it bad for a player to be a utility back, to be able to cover so many positions in the back row?
Well,
is that a bad thing or a good thing for a player?
Not when it comes to Lions still. No, look at Elliot Daly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's okay. It's okay at club level. Look at Kieran Frawley. But as Charlie said, at international Lions test level, I would doubt that very, very much indeed. Okay, Greg, do you want to add anything else before we move on? Or are you okay with that? Yeah.
No, happy to move on.
Okay, Charlie. Another thing that I had on the list, and I really want to just thrash this out a bit because it can't just be, or maybe it is. I don't know, Charlie. I'll ask you. The situation in Welsh rugby at the moment, is it purely mismanaged, badly managed, financial issues, or what the hell is going on with Welsh rugby from your point of view?
Do you know what? I wish I knew, and I wish I had an answer. I think most people wish they probably had an answer for it. It's clearly been poor management, hasn't it? Because the fact that they're now questioning the finances and they're questioning whether they're now going to go from 4 to even 2 teams says to me that something's not been right for a long time. And they're now starting to make some really harsh decisions. But unfortunately, it's the players who are going to be the ones that suffer. There's going to be a huge cull of players and thinking about where do they go next. I just think it's a shocking treatment of professional rugby players. I really do. Greg, we had, and Charlie, I'll mention this while we're on this subject. We had Matt Williams on with us on Wednesday, and we were talking about this, and he said it's an absolutely dire idea to cut the teams down to 2 in Wales because that will directly impact. You can't have an international team with just 2 club teams. What would you say to that, Greg?
Firstly, catching up with Shane Nolan, who's the Leinster CEO, he said that he'd been contacted a few times by Welsh clubs, primarily around the Leinster school system and their pathway. And he said that when he goes over to a Welsh region for a URC game, for example, that there's massive energy put into the lunches before the game, and that's where that still exists, but they still have no fans going to games, and it's like their energy is going into the wrong place. At the end of the day, it's like you need to generate money, you need to engage with fans in order to get revenue to come in order for your professional business to run. So, like for me personally, as head coach of the New York side in MLR rugby, we had limited crowds at the start, and we're still signing players like Bassero or Andy Ellis and people like that to our club. We were relying on the same person who's contributing money from their own pocket who believed in this dream. I think what will happen is, like anything else, if you're not able, and Charlie, you would have seen this with the likes of Worcester and previously in Wasps previously, that unfortunately it's a simple business model. If you're not earning enough money, you can't pay your staff, and you're going to go out of business. And in Wales at the moment, the public don't seem to be engaged in the clubs. There seems to be no engagement in any of the major clubs, which means that they're not getting anybody going to the crowd. There's nobody buying the jerseys, and that's a real issue. I can see a lot of the Welsh players going to the Prem, like they're already beginning to do. I see Tomas Williams actually is now captain of Gloucester, for example, but they'll start going to France. They might even go further afield, but it'll be very hard to bring them together for the international window. And it's going to take reform. And it does come down to finances, unfortunately, because, again, like a business, they're not able to open their doors. So forgetting about pathways and player pathways and everything that goes with it, they need to find a way to rebrand themselves and to engage so that people want to go to a game with their son or with their daughter or with their family and get bums on seats, paying whatever money they can at the start to get the popularity up.
Yeah, good point, Greg. Charlie, what Greg just mentioned there, that sounds like a 5 or 10 year project, though, Charlie, for the Welsh regions to get back to where they were maybe 10 years ago. 5
yeah,
years,
I suppose you only have to look at, the regions themselves. Like, was there a need to separate all those big clubs back in the day, and obviously create the likes of the Ospreys and Scarlets and stuff? Like, the power in Welsh rugby comes from the tribalism between the small towns.
Yes,
and that's where it all comes from. And I think when they started to combine that, was that the beginning of where we are now? I don't know, and therefore people start to lose that engagement with what has always been really, really important to them, because they grow up and they've got their heroes who are really local to them, and then suddenly there's this separation. I don't know. And also bear in mind as well the fact that they're now competing with football. So you've got kids who are growing up seeing the likes of Cardiff City, Swansea City, who are playing the top flight football. So actually, there's another route into sport which perhaps they didn't have once before for the younger generation.
It's terrible that Neath is a perfect example of a team that, to your point, Charlie, if you were to professionalize Neath and the area around that, and team into the minors and whatever way you want to sell it and turn into a team, there's no doubt that tribalism would have stuck with that team, because, in sport, if you're a true supporter of a side, like I'm an Aston Villa fan, and went through 15 years of getting relegated, but I still was an Aston Villa fan. I think the problem was that it created these entities that people weren't quite attached to. And as a result, when things went bad, they weren't as connected. But I was in Cardiff Arms Park only 2 years ago playing a game, and there was a rat that went right next to their gym that was underneath the stadium.
Nice.
That was horrendous, and that's where the players were training. Like
Jeez.
it was like going back to the 1980s. We do know there has been a massive migration effect. Like if you think about Wales, and I'll finish on this, 60s, 70s, 80s, coaling was being such a massive industry. Now you have all these old colliers that are no longer in existence, that are just these massive buildings where you have these council estates around where nobody's living in them. Their suicide rate is exceptionally high, and there's been no redevelopment. There's been no money going into stadiums. There's been no money going into the resources at youth level, and they find themselves in this predicament that is really worrying. And I wonder whether World Rugby now have the interest or the finance to go in and make a really big dent into Wales and help them out. If they do, Wales can come back to being a superpower.
I don't know, Greg. I thought that we will wait and see if what World Rugby do with that, but I'd be skeptical on that. Claire, any thoughts yourself? I know we've spoke about this before. Any thoughts yourself, Claire, on the demise or the state of Welsh rugby at the moment?
It is terrible to see the state of Welsh rugby. Like a couple of years ago, they were winning Grand Slams and Six Nations, and they were beaten much regularly. So it's not good for rugby when a Welsh team is like, where are they, 12th?
They're outside the top 10 anyway. Yeah,
they're outside. Yeah, they're outside the top 10. Then you're talking like Georgia are ahead of them and stuff. So it's not good, considering the amazing players that have come out of Wales. At one stage, I think the Lions team was the Welsh team.
Well, true, yes, but let's not forget, folks, 6 years ago, Wales were the champions.
Yeah, but 6 years ago, Wales under 20s were struggling. Like people in a couple of years' time, Scotland are going to be really struggling on the international stage because their 20s have been exceptionally poor. They're not even playing in the 20s World Cup. They're playing in the level below. So I think, people will say that while Warren Gatland was being successful with a group of players that was putting all their energy and finances into, there wasn't the same energy going into the next level of players coming up underneath. And as a result, they're in the position they are currently in. Scotland are going to be in that position in 4 or 5 years' time. Now, they might have the additional finances. They might be in a better position. But in terms of their player pool, their under 20s in the last 4 and 5 years have been beaten by some incredibly big scorelines, and they're going to struggle on the international stage. So World Rugby globally is constantly going through this evolution, and we're only hearing some of it. But again, Major League Rugby, I know Major League Rugby is new. We have 2 teams that had to, unfortunately, close doors because they couldn't afford to keep running. And I think that's the realization that it's like a business. You have money that needs to be paid out and money that needs to come in. And at the moment, there's not enough money coming into the game. I think professional rugby is in a precarious position. And I think a lot of clubs, and Charlie, you'd know this from being closer to the Prem clubs, there's a lot of clubs now, particularly now the Prem clubs, have to pay back the COVID loans to the RFU, and they've been really sound this year, I believe, with an extension. But
Yeah.
Premiership clubs that are very, very tight on resources.
Charlie, do you want to?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's probably why the likes of Mike Tyndall and a few others are trying to create this incredible league around this sort of franchise model around the world. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but you can see why there's an appetite for something like that. But at the same time, you still need to look after what's going on here at home. And
Yeah.
Totally
agree, yeah. Totally agree, Charlie. That rugby, that R360 thing, Charlie, the limited knowledge I know about it is that it will run for, I think, 12 weeks, September, that time of the year, September, October, November. I think they are looking to sign something like 200 players. I see Gregor's watching. Gregor would know more about this than I would. They're looking to sign 200 players, male players, and 160 female players, and they're just going to get the teams together and do a tour, like a Formula One tour, to all these massive cities, and it'll go on for 3 months. That and obviously the money, Charlie, is astronomical. Yeah. I spoke to BJ Bolton about this, and I said to him, I said, well, BJ, if you were offered $1 million or pounds or whatever it is to go and play for 3 months, would you take it? And he said, of course you would. Any player would. And that's this whole thing.
Let's be honest. We all would. We all would. If you were offered £1 million to do 12 weeks work and be off the rest of the year, you would do it. And it's going to run into another thing, the health of the players. If they're only playing for 12 weeks, with the way the rugby calendar is going now, they're starting in July pre-season and they're still playing up to, May, June? Like some of the lads on that Lions tour played for like nearly a year straight. That cannot be good for your body and your health. I know you're a professional player. Yes, you look after it, but it still cannot be good for your body and your health, as you have seen with some players now.
Yeah. Charlie,
I suppose the question comes is like, what happens to all the other sort of leagues that sit underneath that? Like, what happens to all those players who are current professionals? And also, I've got a question: why Red Bull would get involved with Newcastle now if they knew something was going to happen with that big game? Like, why would they invest in Premiership and then for it all to go tits up? I'm not sure why they would.
Yeah. Okay, before we move on, thanks for that, Charlie. Thank you, Gregor. Thanks, Claire. There's Gregor there now. He's saying, good morning, all. Good morning, Gregor. Eric McCorkle is agreeing with you, Greg. He says, Greg is right. The Welsh took their eye off the ball by not focusing on the youth players. It's a lesson for all national sides. Charlie, my limited knowledge, but I want to ask you about this. But how are the English under-20s, under-18s? How are they coming up? Is England's senior squad good for the next few years?
Yeah, the 20s are doing well, and they should have won the Six Nations Grand Slam actually, but they had a bit of a shocker against Wales in the last game. But so they're good. The 18s have just come back from a tour to South Africa. They didn't do so well actually. They got hammered in a couple of games, but there's a huge amount of development even between the 18s and 20s. Those that then have professional contracts and those that go on to train. So I actually think the health of youth rugby in England is still strong. It's just finding opportunities for those players actually, because we're obviously limited with the number of teams because of losing the likes of Worcester Irish and Wasps, and then it's just finding opportunity for these kids to play because they need to.
True. And we as always, we look forward for our senior test team. We look forward to playing you guys in the Six Nations, and hopefully it always lands around St. Patrick's Day, which is always a great weekend for all concerned, be it in Twickenham or be it in the Aviva. Love it. It's one of the highlights of the rugby year. By the way, we mentioned there about the Claire and Greg when we're talking about the R360 thing, and Charlie, you mentioned there what happens to the leagues that sit underneath that. But then there was talk about a global calendar. Charlie, Greg, Claire, how the hell would that work? And I think that we, with Matt Williams, we spoke about this. The major stumbling block at the moment for a global calendar, if it's wanted, would be the French.
It's always the French causing problems.
Yes. Charlie, a global calendar, does rugby need a global calendar? And if so, we're not going to be able to do it with the French because they will object.
I think it's the only way you take control of player welfare. Then you have a limit on games. You have a limit on windows and when people can and can't play. The issue, as Greg's spoken about already, is money, is finance. Is the reason why there are so many games, certainly in the Premiership, is because the clubs need the money. So they need their gates. They need people to come through the gates to watch. Make it global. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know what the answer is to that. It's nice in theory, but actually there are so many moving parts that how do you take control of that? Because you've got the Irish Rugby Union, obviously they're paying for their players. Scottish Rugby Union paying for their players. You've got the English Rugby Union paying for some of their players, but obviously the rest of the players are owned by the club owners.
Yeah.
Likewise, the same in France. So like, where does that go? Like this, just a minefield, isn't it?
It is. No, good point, Charlie. Greg, your thoughts on this, a global rugby calendar? Like, as I've asked Charlie, how would that work? Or would it work? Or is it wanted?
Yeah, it's funny. In 2021, I was working for World Rugby. And after the Autumn Internationals, I was very lucky. Peter Horn got me to come in and do a review on it with coaches and referees. I was like a fly on the wall, I didn't have a huge amount to say. But they were talking around like the global calendar. I think you have to ask yourself, particularly in the north, if you look at England, Ireland, Wales and Scotland, generally rugby is played in school, which is between certain dates. So certainly like the club. So the end of August through to say March, April, France, England now going into May, even the URC's going into June, which is crazy. But the big thing is, could we make that flip to play rugby essentially starting your season later and finishing later and playing throughout the summer, where the weather will be better, the ground will be harder, people want to go to more games, you're not dealing with the cold, you're not dealing with the winds. But then you're competing against other sports and, Olympics or, loads of other events, soccer, World Cup, European Cups. So it's very hard to find a window, not just for the unions, but also to compete on the globe with other sports. Because at the end of the day, the way the game is going now, and Charlie, you'd know this from growing up, there wasn't much choice on TV. I remember on a Sunday evening, BBC Two, I'd watch rugby for maybe an hour if I was lucky. There was a show on there. But now you have so much choice at home. So for me, even, like I'm going to Ireland and England because I'm working at it next March. But for me now, I'm quite happy to be at home flicking between rugby, rewinding if there's something that I want to see. If I'm hungry, I can go to the fridge and get food. If I need to go for a whiz, it's just straight up and out the door. So the pull of going to games live now is the issue. And I think we need to find a way of becoming more marketable in order to attract more companies for advertising and more TV deals. And sorry, to conclude on this, France are quite happy to do their own thing because their TV deals are worth so much money. And as a result, they're able to get the best players in the world to go there. They're able to pay loads of money because of TV. So French people, again, it's like the parish, Charlie. So you mentioned it, and Claire, you mentioned it before, where they feel connected to the sides. Like, look at La Rochelle, for example. The whole town goes out, but they also watch it on TV, and companies want to invest in that, and as a result, there's money coming in. So to make it global is something I think that people will want, but I think it's something that will never happen, in my opinion.
All right, okay, Claire, do you want to add anything on that before we move on?
No. Again, I'm going to come back to player welfare. If we're doing a global calendar, like, is it going to be? Are you including Six Nations? Are you going to get rid of the Six Nations? Are you getting rid of the Rugby Championship because they're played at different times? So players will probably be going on playing nearly like month in, month out for 10, 11 months, which again cannot be good for player welfare.
And also, folks, the clubs, if this is to go ahead, you'd probably need to double the size of your squad. for injuries and all this sort of stuff. I mean, so I don't like the idea of it anyway. So
I can hold on. I'm a season ticket holder for Leicester. I can barely afford to go to all the games as it is. If they start having global games, I'm screwed. I'll need to rob a bank or something to be able to pay for it.
All right. Okay, moving on. Charlie, this is probably the most poignant or serious point I have on the list I sent you. Sadly, unfortunately, the concussion thing has come back into the news with the tragic passing of Shane Christie, the ex-Crusaders New Zealand Maori player. And I just want to know, in your opinion, Charlie, and I'll ask you the same question, Greg, is enough? I know it's probably an impossible question to answer, but are World Rugby doing enough for player welfare? In your own opinion, Charlie?
So I actually had to look online, actually try and do a little bit of research into this, just to whether what I was thinking was right or whether it was wrong, and so not necessarily right and wrong, but are they doing enough? I genuinely think the safety than ever, the medical support that the players get is better than ever. That's not to say that these things don't happen and people don't get concussions, because it is an unbelievably physical game, and the physicality of the game, it just goes up every single season. It starts afresh, and people are more physical, they're more powerful, their hits are bigger, and so you can understand why it's happening. I was kind of looking into it again. Well, so pre-2012, they sort of had this diagnosis on the run, so they do it in the moment, and then the kind of players would work out whether they're concussed or not. Then from 2015, they have this. They introduced the HIA, obviously temporary subs for head injuries, which is 10 minutes. We've now got smart mouth guards, which we're seeing in the Women's World Cup. Tackle height's been reduced. People are more aware of it as players and recognise it themselves. Gary Ringrose, as an example, on the Lions tour, pulled himself out of selection. So I think I actually don't know what the answer is. I wish I had an answer to have an answer, but I genuinely think from when I first started playing to where it is now, I think that the changes have been good. Obviously, the fact that we're still losing people is not a good thing. So is that change good enough? I just don't know. But I think there certainly are things happening. And it certainly feels like we're learning. It's just we don't know how to protect those who've left the game and kind of gone out the other side, and when some of those moments happen as well. So it's a really contentious issue, isn't it? And it's so sad
it is
losing these people.
It is, and of course, what is it? The CTE is the brain injury that is brought on by concussion, but the CTE, CTE,
they can't diagnose it till you're dead.
Exactly. Yeah. So more.
They can't diagnose it till you're dead.
Yeah. So more work is needed there. But Charlie, and I'll move on to you now, Greg. Just one sec, Charlie. You're never going to 100% eliminate head contact in rugby. That's just a fact of life. It happens. Accidents happen, whether it's head on head or head on knee or whatever. We're not. It's just impossible.
I think there's less malice around tackle as well now. I think if you probably look back 15, 20 years, even less than that, I think there's probably more not a focus, but I think there was probably more malice in some of the tackles. Now you've got people who are genuinely trying to whack the shit out of each other, but actually there's still an element of safety. But because people move so quickly and change direction so quickly, people make mistakes and they get it wrong, and they kind of put their hands up and go, I messed up, and that's fine. I think so. The players are also trying to protect each other as much as they want to hit each other and kill each other. They're still trying to protect each other as well.
Yeah. One player comes to mind, Charlie, Trevor Brennan. when we look back at Trevor,
protect anybody, I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so. No, Greg. Thanks, Charlie. Good points raised. Greg, your own thoughts on this? The same question I asked Charlie. Is enough being done by World Rugby?
Yeah, like it's tricky because. Yeah, well, I think there is. I think World Rugby doing all they can to try and make the players safer. Like I talked recently to you about high metabolic loads. So the ability for players to accelerate, reach their max speed and decelerate has gone through the charts. You know, like look at the modern day prop or the modern day 13. You know, 6'4", 6'5", 110 kgs, 8, 9, 10% body fat, great footwork. So that late direction that Charlie talks about, you can be going in to tackle a player at a certain angle, and that late change all of a sudden can become a significant injury. I think the professional game, again, only turned to what it is now, you know, whatever, 1995, 96. So those players aren't even like in their like late 60s, early 70s. We talked about CTE, of course, that you don't, you can't measure that until somebody unfortunately has passed. But we don't know what's going to happen to those players when they get to a certain age. But certainly now, regarding S&C and nutrition, essentially teams would love to have, you know, 8 back rowers in the pack, all able to run good lines, footwork, and it's creating points of significant force. So I think those smart gum shields that have been created are a great thing. So essentially, as we all know, in the World Cup, they'll flash red if a player gets a hit over a certain velocity. But apparently it's been red by somebody coming down to the ground off a line-out jump and things like that. But I think the laws, we're not seeing, to everybody's point so far, we're not seeing the same collisions like Trevor Leota used to, like smashing people with his shoulder in the head. I mean, I was lucky to play in New Zealand for 2 years, and Jesus Christ, I mean, it was carnage, you know, like I wasn't prepared for that. And that's all been regulated now, and that's great. And at an early age, we can teach the technical components of the tackle, but it's a dangerous game. You know, you're going to be dealing with going bone on bone, as they say. But the most important thing to discuss, education is really important. So now in a professional team, like Leicester back in the day, we knew what their Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays were like. They were in there kicking the shit out of each other. Now you have teams that might be doing 14 or 8 minutes of contact a week in training. So they're reducing the amount of contact and the amount of those hits that you mightn't even read from game day +1 all the way to game day again, which is a good thing. So I think what World Rugby are doing is all they can do, because the game is evolving so quickly, particularly around strength and conditioning and nutrition, that you now have 15 players who are all exceptionally hard, strong, can pass, move. Like only recently, like if you asked a prop to throw a tip-on pass, that was nearly like something you'd never see before. And they were the best props in the world. Now a prop is able to use their feet, give a tip-on, go out the back, rubber kick, knock somebody over. So it's more exciting, but it creates more collisions.
I'm remembering now, Greg, as you're saying that about the prop, Furlong's sidestep against his dancing sidestep against Scotland.
Yeah, but, like you're creating these new props who are all, as I said to you, low body fat, very, very strong people. They've been on strength programs since they were 14 years of age now, where beforehand you'd have a farmer who became a pro because he was 26 years of age playing for Harlequins, and all of a sudden it goes professional, and now all of a sudden he's doing a bit of weights. It's very, very different now, and it's something to be concerned about.
Sure, look at Gange. He's an animal on the park, and his fitness level is through the roof, and he goes and he goes and he goes. You know, years ago we didn't expect props or front rows to last 80 minutes. You know, if you got 50 minutes out of a front row, you were doing well.
Teams now, like the key thing about defense is, you know, it's generally tackler +1. You're trying to slow the ball down enough so your team can get square and come off the line, sometimes outside shoulder. So you're talking about Gange on the ball. But you're talking about the opposite, you know, fringe defender who's defending, who's coming up with equal force. So the force that both those players are currently meeting now is huge. Only look back to the World Cup in 99 or 2003. Teams were still going soft into the edge. You know, defense coaches came in. You look at Phil Larder that came in with Clive Woodward, and rugby league coaches came in and changed how defense is being ran. Teams didn't even bother doing defense before. Like defense wasn't something that teams were really too concerned about. So you were able to have more space in the game. It's a collision sport now. you know, and won and lost by your ability to get on the gain line and over the gain line, to get go forward ball, to play front foot ball. I mean, collisions are through the roof.
Okay, Claire, we've spoken about this before, but just remind us of your opinion about this World Rugby and what they're doing.
Yeah,
Are they doing enough?
Again, Charlie, it's. I don't think it's a yes or no answer. They are doing what they can with the sport. Like, if you go back 20, like, I've watched some old games of rugby, and you're like, oh my God, how is that allowed? Whereas, yeah, and then front rows, back in the day, front rows were let's be honest, they were just the fat boys in the front row. And that's what now you look at them. Dan Sheehan, like, is what amazing. He's a hooker, and then he's on the wing, and then he's like running lines. You're like, they're not supposed to do that anymore. So the game has completely changed. I know we've talked to some people who said, as a parent, would you let your child play the sport now? And I think there's some people who were rugby players that have said they wouldn't, because of
actually
this stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point, Charlie. I'll ask you. Would you have an objection?
No, I've got 2 boys who are playing rugby, and I don't question it one bit. I think the elements of rugby that it gives you, not just in terms of just in terms of being part of a team, learning to win and lose, being resilient, learning to be respectful of your mates and of the referee, and all of those things, and all those life skills that you pick up being part of a rugby team, and that community that you're part of at your local rugby club. That for me is huge, is absolutely huge. And I think I would hate the game to lose the future generation because of things that are and aren't being done at the moment in terms of concussion. I think if they seem to be doing the right thing and moving things forward and making it safe as possible, then for me that's enough. I think there's also an element, just to maybe finish on this, the stuff around education. If you look at like combat sports like jiu-jitsu and things like that, for kids, if they start, I'm guessing they probably wouldn't be thrown into a ring straight away and gone, right, here you are, you're 9 years old, boom, away you go. But I think sometimes in rugby, when you got a new kid that starts at 9 years old, they might get a taster session for half an hour learning how to tackle, and they get thrown into a match and clearly don't know how they're doing and what they're supposed to be doing. So maybe just in terms of education from a younger age, we spend longer with them learning how to manage that contact, rather than just doing a few sessions and then thinking they're actually going to be fine and they'll work it out. Maybe there's more that can be done from a younger age.
Learn the technique. Learn the technique. Get the technique right, and make sure from a young age that they have the technique down to my coach is still at her age. In women's rugby, she still says that once you have your technique, that's we're not here to our pre-season is working on technique before you start hitting bags.
Look, it was drilled into me at an early age when I started playing the game. You know, head position, shoulder position. Sorry, go on, Greg.
I'm just saying, like, you got to remember, if you look at the evolution of the scrum, and you can even look at YouTube and type in evolution of the scrum. In the 99 World Cup, you had 2 packs that were about 2 meters away from each other, and they just rammed towards each other. It was so dangerous. If you look at the breakdown, just people coming in from all angles, people being rucked on the ground, people coming in high shots, clotheslines. World Rugby have taken all that out. Like the scrum now, they're at the point where they're touching before they're engaging. They've done a huge amount of job around that. Like, the one thing for me dealing with young kids, and I got this from Scott Robertson, who I mentioned before, every day we train, even if we're doing a skill session, we have a wrestling coach who will do some form of grappling, primarily because I want my players to understand how to turn negative momentum into positive momentum, but understanding how your body works in that space and how you're able to observe movement and change in body angles is incredibly important. And I think we're doing all we can. We're just dealing with a sport that the more professional it gets, the more we're seeing these athletes come through that are just designed bigger, stronger, faster.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Greg. Good points. Good points raised by all there. Okay. I'm aware we have about. We normally go over now, but I'm conscious it is a Friday morning and people are at work, so I will end it with this.
Definitely not me. I'm definitely not in my office and work.
Okay, we have 2 games this weekend, which I'd like to ask you. Charlie, I'll ask you last because you're our guest. Greg, I'll ask you first. The 2 games I'm talking about, win, lose, or draw. We have first up tomorrow at 5 o'clock. The England women are playing Samoa. Who's winning, losing, drawing?
John Mitchell, England, are just phenomenal. Best side in the world. High score line, over 50 points to England.
Okay, and secondly, Greg, the Irish women are playing the Spanish women at 12 o'clock midday on Sunday.
Yeah, Ireland have made a couple of changes. They're playing Perry, the English loose head, I see, which is good. They're giving a lot of their fringe players an opportunity, which is terrific because you're developing competition. But I still see Ireland winning by over 30.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Greg. Claire, I know we spoke about this before, but I'm going to ask you again for the sake of this show. Remind us, England women versus the Samoa women. Who's winning, losing, or drawing that?
England, and can we rob Ellie Kildon, please? Can we have her? She's amazing. She is one of the best women players in the world.
She is. You're quite right. So England by a big score, Claire. Sorry, did you say that? No?
Yeah. We have England by a big score, yeah. I agree with Greg, over 50.
Okay, and the Irish women are playing the Spanish.
What did they do? They put 62 points on the USA last weekend, didn't they? Yeah.
They did. Okay, the Irish women against the Spanish women, Claire.
Ireland.
Okay, and the final voice on the show today is our guest, Charlie. Okay, Charlie. First up, England women versus Samoa. Who is taking that one?
Yeah, I won't be changing anything that's been said already. It's England to win, comfortable win. Ellie Kildon is she's been on fire, so I think she's definitely one to watch.
She
and
is.
Then likewise,
she's great player. Irish women against the Spanish women.
Irish women to win as well. I think unfortunately we're at that stage where there's so many teams and there's lots of sort of developing teams where there's going to be one-sided results at the moment. And I think when we get to the later stages of the tournament, we'll start to see some real good competitive matches. But I think at the moment, certainly for the likes of England, definitely when they're playing the lesser teams, should we call them?
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. One thing that just popped into my head there, Charlie, as you're saying that. One game I'd love to see. Now, I don't know if it can happen with the sides of the draw it's on. I'd love to see Canada play England.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a great game because a lot of those Canadian women play in the Premiership. So that would be a great game. Okay.
1 and 2 in the world, aren't they?
I think so, yeah. All right, folks, listen. Sorry, go on, Greg.
No, I'm just saying it used to go from group stages and straight to the semi-finals. They've opened it up now. You've got quarterfinals. So I think to Charlie's point, you're going to have lots of mismatches, which the men's team went through as well to include more nations, and that'll reduce. But we won't really see those big games till you get to the quarterfinal stages, and that's going to be really exciting. Yeah,
very true. We shall look forward to that, Greg. Okay, that is all we have time for. Folks, my thanks are, as always, to Claire Devaney, Greg McWilliams. You have been a font of information and, as always, great chatting with you. And to our special guest, Charlie Hodgson, you're a gent, and thank you so much. We have thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. It's been an education, Charlie. So enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. All the best. Bye.